Good evening, everyone. I'm Brent Taramillo, Taos County Manager. I want to welcome you to our fourth of our Enchanted Circle Fire Series, brought to you by UNM-Taos, Carson Electric, and Taos County. And I'd also like to acknowledge the Enchanted Circle Realtors Association. As I've done in the other panels, they've provided the refreshment. So when you see members of the Enchanted Circle Realtors Association, please thank them for providing the snacks. And I thank you. I don't know how many of you have been here for all four series. Oh, that's good. That's a good handful that's been here. I know last time we had a few folks straggle in a little bit late. Our moderator for tonight is Angel Reyes, president of Centennial Bank. And with this, I'll turn it over to Angel.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to be here with everybody, and looking forward to our discussion today. We have some distinguished professionals within the industry to hopefully give some insights tonight on the impacts of wildfire risk as it relates to insurance and real estate and real estate values. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Brandon Rose to introduce himself and give him a brief background.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for being here. My name is Brandon Rose. I've been a licensed realtor here in Taos for 20 years. I work with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services and have worked in collaboration with Diane Enright for about 10 years. So thank you for being here.
Good evening. I'm Melissa Robertson. I'm the Property and Casualty Bureau Chief at the Office of Superintendent of Insurance. No, it's a long title. Essentially, we regulate all the insurance companies, agents, claims adjusters here in the state. Just a brief background, I actually came out of industry, was an agent for 20 plus years before coming as a regulator. And I want to introduce my coworker in the back. She's actually there if you guys have insurance questions. Her name is Lou Macias. She is the Bureau Chief of Civil Investigations and Consumer Assistance. We come from very much the same background as 20 plus years in industry and then now to the regulation side.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Joseph Quintana. I am a lifelong Centennial. I've been in the insurance industry for 25 years. And it's a really good time to have these discussions. It's a good time to disseminate information out there so that people understand where we're going and how they can protect their property and insure it properly. So thank you for coming tonight and having us. We appreciate that.
So just a brief explanation of what our plan is tonight. And I just want to make sure, can you guys all hear me okay? Yeah, good. So I have a series of questions. I'll just be rotating through the panel. Our idea objective is to get through our panel discussions within about 45 minutes to an hour, and then we'll have some open questions for the panel. And so we'll kind of take somewhere between maybe up to 15 minutes of Q&A with the panel, and then certainly there's materials in the back for anybody who is interested in those materials. And so we'll start off with Mr. Quintana tonight. Mr. Quintana, what are the major rating factors driving the eligibility of coverage and determining premium amounts in the homeowner insurance industry today?
Hello? Yeah. Thank you, Angel. I appreciate that. So right now, the main driver of rating for homeowner insurance, and we're going to focus on homeowner insurance today, stems from the Insurance Services Office. It's called ISO. It's a national standard, and I know my esteemed colleague knows a lot about that. But from that comes a rating factor that's been around for 100 years, and it's called Public Protection Class. Public Protection Class is the proximity of a property to fire suppression. So how close to the nearest fire department, how close to the nearest place that they can refill their trucks, so the nearest fire hydrant, how many fire trucks do they have, how much water can it carry, are they a volunteer fire department, are they professionally manned, how quick can they get to a fire and put it out. So fire departments all over the nation and all over New Mexico and all over northern New Mexico are continually working to lower their public protection class. Bigger trucks, better trucks, faster trucks, more infrastructure to get water to places within the community so that they can refill. Taos right now at the lowest has a public protection class of 4, as opposed to an urban area like Albuquerque that has a protection class of 1. So Taos has done a very good job of getting their fire departments in line, getting their equipment in line, and doing things that help that PPC. Other communities, Angel Fire, Red River, Cuesta, all of the surrounding Enchanted Circle communities have done so as well. And a lot of their PPC hovers at about 5. Then it goes up to a 10. So if you have a protection class of 10, that means you're now starting to get to a point where you may not be accepted by an insurance company because of your proximity to fire suppression. Or if they do accept you, your premiums are now going to reflect that it's going to be a little while before they can get to your home if it starts on fire. So that's one of the big rating factors that's been around forever. So now there's this new ISO standard, and it's called FireLine. And FireLine, well, it's been on the train track for 5 years. 5 years ago, we started doing seminars in Taos and Angel Fire and Red River, and we were met with a lot of resistance from a lot of people because they just really didn't understand what was meant by FireLine. And of course, the real estate industry didn't like it because property now has to have insurability. You have to make sure that it can be insured. So FireLine is now an ISO standard, and FireLine is the proximity of a property for the potential for it to be caught in a wildfire. And it has a lot of the same attributes as PPC in that it measures how close to a fire department, how quickly can they get there, but now it's measuring all of the forest, all the burnable, anything that burns around them. So now it's measuring anything that can cause a wildfire. And it measures ingress and egress. So if you have a property in Camino Real in Angel Fire, and it's a one-way up and a one-way down, and it's heavily forested, now you have a FireLine score that the insurance industry is looking at and saying, are we going to take this on? Is this a risk that we want to take on, given the context that it may be caught in a wildfire and we can't get to it to put it out? So those are the two big driving factors of rating these days. And of course, there's inflationary factors. Profitability is a huge issue. Claims. These are all factors that are pushing premiums, and you can see that every insurance company out there is determining whether you qualify for them to cover you, whether they want to renew you or non-renew you, or even write you to begin with. And then what's that premium going to be for the insurance company to take that on? So those are the main rating factors that we see pushing premiums industry-wide at this point.
Thank you, Joseph. Very comprehensive response. I'd like to get Melissa's additions to that same question, because often we hear premiums are going up, and just like to get your perspective.
Let's see if it's going to turn on. Okay, so yes, rates are going up, and he explained it very well. One of the main driving right now that we're seeing is inflation. I mean, if you go to a hardware store right now and you try to buy the same materials you bought 10 years ago, they're a lot more expensive. And per New Mexico statute, your company must insure you for replacement cost. So it's the cost that it's going to cost the company to rebuild your home now, not 10 years ago, not 20 years ago. And so what that essentially does, the company then has to charge the rate accordingly. I know, I'll use my own house. My parents bought it originally. It was $200,000. I bought it from them this last year. It was $600,000. So the difference in premium of what they insured it for and what I insured it for is crazy. So that's a major factor that's driving rates up. Secondly, if you've watched the news at all, the major catastrophes across the United States. When I say that, we have not even taken into account yet the California fires. And right now, companies are in the $1 billion in losses. And so when they file their rates with us, they do have to file an actuarial memorandum. We do review it because we have to make sure their rates are sound. We have to make sure they're not excessive, they're not discriminatory. And so rates are going up, but companies still have to stay solvent to be able to stay in our state.
Let's move on. Brandon, let's talk about today's market and discuss your experience for your clients obtaining homeowners insurance in areas deemed to be high wildfire risk.
Sure, and thank you, Angel. I think ultimately what both sellers and buyers are experiencing is just a continued uncertainty, and this level of uncertainty leads them to hesitate, and it causes effects on the transaction with moving things in a timely manner. I think buyers are certainly approaching real estate transactions with a lot more due diligence. We've always had standard insurance contingencies, but the information available is ever changing. There's a clause that's even in bold letters on our purchase agreement now that basically says you may obtain coverage, you have the right to research and search for coverage, but the coverage could change within 60 days of closing escrow. So I think it's mostly just the uncertainty. And with that, you've got hesitation, transactions that can stall or terminate. Buyers are certainly sensitive to obtaining coverage or even being canceled. We've had policies in place that even prior to closing are terminated just due to market changes.
So we're hearing that companies are leaving the state or no longer writing insurance. Can you provide an overview of what you're experiencing?
This mic. Sure. So we don't have companies leaving the state. We actually put in a rule last year that should a company even stop offering a product, they have to give us notification. We have not to this day received any notifications of any companies leaving the state. Now, with that, what is happening is they are spreading the risk. So if a company has 10 homes on one road and they're at a high propensity of loss, that company is going to come in, they're going to look at each house individually and see which one has been mitigated and which one has not. The ones that have not, they will drop. But that's not to say that another company that doesn't have anything on that road is not going to come in and pick up those others. So they're not leaving, they are getting more aggressive on their underwriting, and underwriting is becoming a lot more strict, but they're not leaving.
Can you maybe just build on that a little bit and talk about what it means to be more aggressive in underwriting?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Angel. And we're really lucky that New Mexico and the Office of Insurance is protecting that. There are insurance companies that are leaving some states, and you've heard about it in the news, California, Florida, Texas, Colorado, Louisiana. There's states that just aren't profitable for insurance companies to maintain business within those states, and they're choosing not to do that. New Mexico's not there, and that is a really good thing. As far as underwriting, so underwriting right now has really gotten very, very stringent when it comes to any company providing property insurance to properties in all of the zones. There's several zones starting from low to moderate to high to extreme, and the underwriting rules and regulations for all of these differ from company to company to company. Mainstream companies like State Farm, Farmers, Allstate, Liberty Mutual they're a lot more conservative and stringent in their underwriting than some of the companies that are coming and stepping up to the plate to write high-risk properties, and that is a really, really good thing. A couple of 6 months ago, if you were dropped and they weren't going to renew your policy, insurance companies did this. I don't know what we're going to do, but since then there's been a lot of positive movement in being able to attain insurance from a multitude of companies that are signing up with the state, that are doing business in New Mexico, that will write high risk, and their guidelines for underwriting are also very, very stringent, but they will write the risk. But associated with that comes the premium that's associated with it. So a high-risk property in Gallina Canyon, as an example, because Gallina Canyon is a one-way road up, and it's a heavily wooded area, where you could get a policy for on the low end at $5,000 a couple of years ago. It's going to be $15,000 or $18,000 now, and there's companies that are going to want to write that. So the guidelines are getting tough. They're looking at how you maintain your home. So the way the whole defensible space and some of the stuff that we're going to talk about later come into play are going to be critical to an underwriter or a company deciding that they want to write your risk and the premium that's going to be associated with that.
Thank you, Joseph. Let's go to Melissa. Thank you for bringing up the topic of defensible space. And so that is the primary way of cutting down your risk when it comes to wildfire. Can you tell us a little bit about how a homeowner can practice defensible space on their property?
So this year in session, we got Senate Bill 33 passed, and what that does is it actually brought in a company called IBHS. It's the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. They are a nonprofit. They are funded by the insurance industry, and they do all the science as to how to protect and mitigate your home from loss. They do have the science stating if you do their process, it does give your home a 60% chance of standing when a fire blows through. And just to go past fire, they do hurricane, hail, wind, fire. So they take the major catastrophes. So bringing in this bill, this brought IBHS in, and essentially what it will be, and we're only 2 months out from session, so we are standing up this program right now, but they do have two sides of it. One is the Wildfire Prepared Basic and the Wildfire Prepared Plus. Basic is more towards the retrofits of existing homes. The Plus is for new construction when you look at cost. And what happens is you mitigate your homes to these standards. You go online, you fill out a form, they send out somebody to inspect your property, and once they feel it is mitigated correctly, you will actually apply for a certificate, and you will turn that certificate into your agent. They'll send it up to their actual industry command. And at that point, because they are funded by the industry, they are recognizing that, and they are willing to stay on your insurance. They're willing to write insurance, which is going to help real estate be able to buy and sell. So that is a huge accomplishment that we had passed this year. And actually, if you stop back at the back table, Lou has a lot of the flyers. They're very easily, really the base plan is home maintenance. The most expensive part of that would be a Class A roof. When I talk about the Wildfire Prepared Plus and why you do that on a new construction, it's pennies to the dollar. So we have these back there, very easy to work through, very easy to read. The plan is coming, again, we're 2 months out. We're hoping in the next 2.5 months to have their website up and running. But that gives you time now to start mitigating to these standards. So when you're ready to go and it's up, you can get that certificate quickly.
Thank you. Let's go back to Joseph. Joseph, build on Melissa's response and talk a little bit about how you're guiding homeowners to protect their properties.
Okay, thank you, Angel. Yeah, defensible space as it exists right now is a tool to save your home from a wildfire so that you have it tomorrow and you don't lose it. This new program is a huge, huge thing because the industry is going to actually recognize it as something that is viable to drive premiums down. As it exists right now, defensible space has 3 zones. The 0 zone is 0 to 5 feet from your home. Zone 1 is 30 feet from your home. And zone 2 is 30 to 100 feet from your home. And there is a series of mitigation moves that you can do to try and combat a wildfire that may come into your area. As everyone knows, wildfires create their own windstorm, they create their own weather, and a lot of the fire damage that comes from a fire is embers that are being pushed by the wind. So right now, defensible space, if you have defensible space, it's not going to play into your premium rate nor the ability for a company to be able to write you or not write you. It's just something for you to protect your home in the event of wildfire. Right now, FireLine is the driving force for insurance companies to rate and accept or non-accept a property for coverage. But this new program, and I just found out about it tonight, is going to be something that people are going to be jumping up for joy with, because now you can actually physically do something to your home that has defensible space in it, get a certificate, and then have it recognized by the insurance industry so that you could enjoy a lower premium by that. So defensible space is a good thing. It's a good thing always to just protect your home, your choice of building materials. If you're living in the wildfire interface, years ago, people flocked to northern New Mexico to live in the forest because it's cool, literally cool. And now it's changed due to climate change, to all of these other factors that are out there that now have made these homes put them in a position of danger to this wildfire, and the insurers that insure them are recognizing that. So the whole issue of defensible space is just, I think, maturing and coming of age. There's also something that's called FireWise. And FireWise is an antiquated concept. FireWise community is a community that goes through a process with the state and with the federal, and they create a certain situation where they're able to qualify for grants to help people create defensible space within their communities. And not only that, but to go out into the most vulnerable parts of the forests that are most dangerous to threatening to a community, and to thin them out and to do defensible space there. So FireWise communities, and Taos has plenty of FireWise communities. They've pretty much all done it. Carson, El Salto, Gallina Canyon, Latier, Pot Creek. San Cristobal, Taos Canyon, Taos Ski Valley, Valle Escondido, Turley Mills. All of these communities have jumped through the hoops to be a FireWise community so that they can qualify for granting to do thinning and to help people with their defensible space. But this new program is going to be something that everyone is going to be really interested in because it's actually going to mean something.
Thank you, Joseph. We'll stay with Melissa. So we've heard tonight about different factors that influence your premium, eligibility. Joseph, you gave a really good example of a premium in Valdez that several years ago, $5,000, maybe it's 15 or greater. I'm curious, Melissa, what options do consumers have if their insurance is dropped or declined altogether?
So New Mexico does have a residual plan. It's the New Mexico Fair Plan. It is an insurer of last resort, so you don't want to be there unless you have to be. How they differ a little bit from the open market, as I explained earlier, is replacement cost. The Fair Plan is the only policy that is actual cash value. So don't expect to get any more for your house than what the actual cash value is. It used to only cover up to $350,000. Our superintendent has worked with the Fair Plan board, and that has been raised now to $750,000 for personal property. It is at $1 million right now for commercial. The other flip side of you not wanting to be in there is your homeowners right now covers just about anything you could imagine minus flood. Flood is a federal coverage. We can't touch that. But with the Fair Plan, it is limited. You have wind, fire, theft, hail, and vandalism. That's it. So if anything besides those 5 happen to your home, it is not covered. So it is there to bridge the gap if you lose coverage in the open market. We do see where insurance companies have dropped a home due to lack of mitigation, and people have been able to come into the Fair Plan, have insurance that still meets the requirements of their mortgage. They've been able to mitigate their property and move back out into the open market once the new company comes and inspects the property.
Thank you, Melissa. Let's shift over and get some perspectives from Brandon in the real estate area. So we have a couple questions for Brandon. Let's start just by understanding how fire has impacted property values. I know you talked earlier about the uncertainty.
Yeah.
What are you seeing about property values or discussions with either sellers or buyers?
Well, I think ultimately, I started talking about hesitation, and I think with that you see adaptability. And we're seeing adaptability with both buyers and sellers. Particularly with buyers, it's important to put into context, many of the buyers relocating to Taos is entirely a discretionary purchase. So they have time working for their benefit, and they have the ability to be selective. So as a result of that, in evaluating properties, areas, inevitably low-risk areas close to town, closer to infrastructure, remain strong and competitive. The reverse side of that is more high-risk rural areas, forested areas, could see slower sales, ultimately with additional days on market, which generally does affect pricing. Buyers are certainly asking more history questions of sellers, both in terms of local knowledge of the property, but also communities. We talked about FireWise. Buyers are educating themselves on their own calculation of risk, in addition to the insurance coverage. Certainly with evaluating areas, they're factoring costs, and with that cost and risk, they're price sensitive. So if you can find a property that's insurable, we have seen instances of homes in higher risk areas where obtaining policies have been limited, or certainly we have many single-family homes well above $750,000, so that higher-end segment of the market may see limitations in available products.
Sounds like a very important consideration these days. Talk a little bit about your process, either working with sellers or buyers. How early on in the process are you now talking about insurance?
Well, I can't help, having done this 20 years in Taos, it seemed as though that the standard of practice historically with insurance was often 3 or 5 days prior to closing. A buyer even obtaining a loan would contact their insurance broker, They would call them, they would give them the address, it would get formalized, and they'd have a policy quote within an hour. At this stage, if buyers are really being discerning, many of them are starting from the very beginning. Some of the very first questions they ask about properties are evacuation routes, defensible space, mitigation plans, and it seems more sellers are then left to ask themselves the same question. They can be proactive, try to address those on the front end, almost as a marketing benefit versus waiting till later. And if a policy can't be obtained, most buyers are pretty unwilling to make an offer or proceed.
Gotcha. If you would, just kind of share your final thoughts on implications or trends, what you're seeing in Taos County in addition to what you've covered tonight.
I think the greatest advice I can give is to work with licensed qualified professionals in the insurance industry. I think buyers and sellers should be speaking regularly with their licensed professionals, and I think that's crucial.
That's great. Let's go to Joseph. Joseph, you talked earlier about FireWise community, and you identified several communities that have been determined FireWise communities. I'd ask you to respond to two questions. First, just remind the audience, what does it mean to be FireWise, and what does it mean for these communities? And then talk a little bit about the wildfire risk classification score.
Thank you, Angel. Yes, so the whole issue of FireWise is something that the industry holds very dear because it does a couple of things. It mitigates the threat of wildfire to your home, but not only does it protect that, it protects the firefighters that go in and try to protect your home as well. So FireWise communities are a good thing in that there's awareness that your home could potentially be caught in a wildfire and you could lose it, whether you had insurance through the open market or you had the fair plan or you had anything out there. The potential for you to lose your home is higher now than it's been in the past, especially in northern New Mexico. So FireWise communities are critical to bring awareness to homeowners so that they can be aware of what's going to happen in the event of a wildfire. It's going to allow for the communities to qualify for grant purposes to do mitigation to help in the event of a wildfire. And it's just going to bring awareness to the entire community on the dangers of where you live. So I encourage all the communities to look at the FireWise, USA FireWise model and see if they would like to be part of that, or at least know the attributes of that FireWise process. So that's the first thing. And then as far as, and the other question?
Wildfire risk score?
Oh, yes. So wildfire risk score is, so it's all by zip code. And there is models out there in the industry, in the insurance industry, that say, for example, the Weimar area. Right now, the Weimar area is not in the forest. There's no big trees, there's no ponderosas, there's nothing there like that. But a lot of those homes are being targeted for non-renewal because of these models that the industry has. And if you note, the California fire of last year wasn't in the forest. There was no forest, but it was a devastating fire that was driven by wind with low-growing vegetation. So now there's these models out there that are saying, well, here's an area that could potentially be caught in a fire driven by wind, and we could lose everything in it, and are we willing to accept that risk or not? So now there's low to extreme fire risk classifications in the industry, and it's all done by zip code, and every zip code in New Mexico has been classified as a risk of some sort, whether it's low to none or very extreme and very high. And everything is being driven about what's going to be allowed to be covered by this classification. And the industry is adapting quickly. Companies like Chubb, Markle, there's all these companies that are looking to write in the wildfire areas, and they're using, and I'm not too sure people are aware of this, but it's called reinsurance. And it's an insurance company having an insurance policy on your policy. So it's insurers insuring insurers to insure you. And it's called reinsurance, and it's big in the industry because a big catastrophe could bankrupt a company very quickly based on the trillions of dollars or millions of dollars that they have to pay out. So those are getting better. I think you regulate reinsurers as well, right? So the state regulates the reinsurers. And then there's something coming down the pike that I'm really interested in. It's a new idea for the northern New Mexico called parametric insurance policies. And these things have been around in the coastal areas that have been hit by hurricane after hurricane and flood after flood, and getting insurance in these areas is almost impossible anymore. This new parametric insurance is different from the traditional insurance world, and there's more to be. It's basically that the natural peril is covered. So the wildfire would be covered. But that's something we're seeing maybe in the future as the insurance industry adapts every single day to people needing to have their properties covered. And we know it's frustrating. I get it every single day. People are non-renewed. They've been paying insurance for years and years and years. It's very frustrating that you've paid an insurance company for 20 years and all of a sudden you get your love letter that says, hey, we don't want you anymore. And what do you do? And where do you go? And you look to the next insurance company and they say no, and they say no, and they say no. But that's getting better. It's getting a lot better. There's a lot of companies that are now coming to fruition that are good five-star companies, strong companies that have good reinsurance that are willing to cover you in the interface.
Thank you so much. We're going to have our final question from Melissa. I know you talked about SB 33, and it sounds like there's some great information. We're just 2 months past the legislature. What would be your message or communication to the audience, and anything that you would want shared in the community to get the word out about SB 33?
So SB 33, the beauty of it is called the Fire Planning Task Force. MNERD, which I think I see one of our New Mexico forestry people in the back. MNERD initially had a fire planning task force. It had not been active for quite some time because we didn't have the fire catastrophes that we're having, more frequently. And so initially what kind of started is Lou and I bringing in IBHS to educate us. We brought in the head forester, we brought in the state fire marshal and construction industries, and we started a little coalition, and about halfway through we went, this exists, but it doesn't exist at the level we need. So at that point, legislation was drafted, and through that, in the task force, it added Office of Superintendent of Insurance, It added a liaison to the insurance industry and a climate specialist. And so this task force is National Forest Service. It's volunteer fire departments. They have a representative. It's OSI. It's New Mexico Forestry. It's BLM. There's 23 different entities, both from the community to the federal level. And so we are coming at this from all angles. We know this is an issue. We're trying to get ahead of it. Realistically, if you look back 15 years in New Mexico, we've been lucky that really we've had catastrophes. They're getting larger, but we haven't seen the devastation that some of the other states have. So we're trying to get ahead of this before we get to that point. With this, and it's something that was said at a town hall I was at a couple weeks ago, is, somebody stood up and said, well, my rates are going up, when are they going down? Somebody else on the panel, much higher than me, took the question, and the answer that was given is OSI, essentially my bureau, we don't have a foot to stand on until these properties have been mitigated when it comes to fighting for lower rates for you. So SB 33 does allow for that mitigation. It does bring the company in that the industry recognizes. Kind of a weird thing, SB 33 didn't get funds, but OSI got funds. But we did get $10 million to start up a grant program for the people in the New Mexico Fair Plan to help them mitigate their properties to be able to go back into the open market, which is going to help drive the real estate market. It's going to help our insurance agents that are on the ground to, get people back within their companies. So there's a lot in SB 33 going on. It does allow for mitigation at the federal level. It has a large part to do with New Mexico Forestry. They can mitigate up to a property line. And then we have the homeowner mitigating their property, so it's creating a better fire barrier all the way across, and it's statewide.
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you to the panel. That completes our moderated questions. We will open it up for any questions from the audience. So I have one microphone. If you have a question, raise your hand, and as long as it takes me to get to you, I'll put the microphone in your face.
You can probably hear me.
We can, but
Without a microphone. Thank you. Joseph, I think this one is for you, but I know that just tonight you were learning more about the new state program and the mitigation and the certificate that can be gotten by homeowners. And homeowners would be safer and their homes would be safer if they went through this process. Would that make a heck of a difference, though, if you're by a fire line?
Yeah, the answer to that is yes. I believe that the industry, if they are recognizing mitigation efforts to protect your home, it is going to reflect premium and the ability for an insurance company to have insurability or accept your property. So yes, I believe so.
And just a couple comments. For real estate, we have seen people, as you've mentioned, that first off, it's in our purchase agreement to start searching for insurance right away. But that can happen and somebody can be told yes. We have seen people lose their insurance 5 days before closing. We have seen it 5 days after closing. It does affect buyers, and buyers do have more time, but sometimes sellers do not have more time. And sellers need to be able to get rid of their properties. I know at one time, Joseph, I heard you speak and you said that sometimes your company will let you go outside of the parameters of Allstate or Farmers and insure it yourself. Like your office could insure something that your company maybe said no to. Did I hear that correctly? And then I'm also just wondering, I hear sometimes that like USAA insurance will come in and cover more than some of the other larger companies we're used to. Can you speak to the differences between the companies?
Yes, the day and age of captive agents is gone. So what that means is, while we belong to the Farmers Insurance Group, which is a large group of companies, if any of those companies within that group do not have what we call an appetite, or they don't want to take on the risk, it allows us to act as independent agents. So now we can go out to a multitude of companies out there and get proposals from them based on their company, on what their specific rules and regulations are to cover properties in whatever, if they're in a high fire line or not a high fire line. So yes, so we can go out if we don't have an appetite to do that. Now, what we do, and we've been very successful here in Taos, is that we want to make sure that that if we're selling a policy for a closing, and there's a lot of them, that it's going to stick. There have been known some companies, and I don't bash any companies, but to take on a risk, and then after they have done the inspection process, because there's an inspection process that happens, they decide that no, we didn't know what we were doing, and we're going to cancel this policy. That's what you're talking about. And that really harms the clients, because the clients say, hallelujah, they're going to cover me. And they go through that whole process and close. And then a week later, after the inspection, they get canceled. And that is not a good way of doing business. So we try to make sure the insurability is going to stick no matter what happens. Technology has come a long way. It used to be boots on the ground for inspections, and every homeowner policy that was written had a third-party inspection process that happened, and somebody came and looked at your property and made sure that there was pride of ownership, there was nothing that was going to get in the way of this policy, and then they let the policy continue to be bound and move forward. Nowadays, we can inspect a property immediately from the satellite, and 80% of our product now has been inspected as soon as we put the address into the system. And it's going to tell us right away if it's acceptable or not acceptable. Then it's going to give us a fire line and a public protection class, and then we're going to know that it's going to stick. So if it's a high fire line and our insurance group doesn't want it, we're going out to the insurers that we know will write it. And we're taking the time to do that. It takes a lot of time. It doesn't happen in an hour or 2 hours like the olden days. We could throw out a quote in a couple of hours. If it's a high fire line situation, it may take a couple of days now because of this underwriting process. The underwriters are looking at every single aspect, but we know at the end of the day that it's going to be insurable, and we're not going to pull the insurance policy from you after closing.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I heard the term FireLine. Who actually makes that determination? Is it done by the house, or maybe the community you live in, or the zip code you're in, or how is that determined?
So FireLine is now being generated from a company called Verisk, which is a subsidiary of ISO. And they use several models, lots of AI in there. And so with the mapping and the models, that's where they can determine, is it one way in, one way out? They can look at the percentage of foliage around a house. They, through the PPC process, through ISO, they know what the water capacity is. So there's a lot of factors that go into this, but as was explained, and every company is using their own modeling. There is so many models out there, we can't even count. And then the AI that's coming into it now. I was talking to a company today that has 9,000 data points on every house in the United States. So they're doing a ton, it's a mix of everything. So there's mapping, there's modeling, there's AI, and then that generates. I mean, some of these maps, Lou and I have sat in on their training, and we can look at an area, see which is one way in, which is one way out, what the width of the road is, what the length of the road is. And when I'm saying just one way in and one way out, That's looking at the main road to your house, and then they're still from that main road to your house. So I've actually been out with the state fire marshal on a few of these. The road in is a mile in, the main road. But then from that road to your house is another half mile or quarter mile, and that road goes from 12 feet down to 8 feet. So they're looking at everything, and that's captured in the modeling and in the mapping.
Thank you. We got one more question.
Actually, I just had a weird thought. I always think of defensible space as trees. Do the wooden fences play a role as well?
So yes, with IBHS standards, the zero zone. So this is 0 to 5 feet away from your house. We are talking shrubbery, trees, rose bushes, mulch. Mulch will burn longer than your house will. We sat in a thing, the mulch burned for 6 hours past the structure time. But yes, so in that 0 to 5 foot, what happens is you essentially, two things. You have an accumulation of embers now up against the house because it does draft wind in because there's nowhere to escape. And then it creates a fire tunnel on the other side that will go right up your vertical wall. So that 0 to 5 foot, and we know privacy fences, coyote fences, all that is huge in this state. You're putting a matchstick next to your house. So what they suggest, if you want that privacy fence, okay, know what you're doing ahead of time. But in that 0 to 5 foot zone, you want like a wrought iron metal gate that's open, that has breathability. That way when it comes in, it can actually, the heat and the embers can push out the side and it does not drive that firewall up the outside of your house. So that 0 to 5 feet is critical. Now when I talk 0 to 5 feet, there's also a 6-inch vertical in there. So from the ground up 6 inches on your house. This is where we see people let dead grass grow. We see pine needle accumulation, propane tank within 5 foot of the house with pine needles up against the house. And essentially that 6-inch, that's that accumulation area of those embers. And as we know, in fire-driven or in wind-driven fire, those embers can go 2 miles. So the fire may be over there, your house is here, and you're thinking you're fine. You're not, because those embers are going to come in. If that privacy fence is there, accumulate on that house, create that firewall, or on those 6 inches.
Thank you so much. Oh, we've got a question back there. Right under the wire.
I live right in town. So is my house at risk also? Do I have to think about 0 to 5 feet?
It doesn't matter where your house is for that 0 to 5 feet. To give you an idea, Lou's group handles all consumer assistance, so questions, concerns, investigative stuff. And we have people that are now in the middle of Taos, in the middle of Santa Fe, that are now in fire-prone areas, and it's that wind-driven ember. If you look at the California fire, and IBHS is out doing science on literally every fire. So if you look at that one, they actually had a guy that lived there while this was happening, and through live feed, you could see two things. You could see the ember spread, and secondly, the other big thing on a house is venting. So a lot of vents, whether it's attic or on the bottom, you need to have a metal mesh screening at 1/8 of an inch or less to prevent that ember from entering. And so what we saw in California is, first of all, the ember spread. So first you had ember spread that brought in from the wildland-urban interface to those homes. At that point, it became radiant heat that took home by home. But ahead of that, with that ember spread, because as home by home goes, then you're getting additional ember spread, you could actually sit there, and there's already a documentary on it, and watch, and you'd start seeing smoke coming out of the top of a house. And that was actually those embers getting into those vents in those attics and igniting from the inside. So, fire works in weird ways. So we are seeing the center of town and Santa Fe, but you have to look around. A lot of people look and they'll say, I mitigated my home, especially in town. And they'll look at the eye level. Okay, my trees are trimmed back, they're trimmed up. They fail to look up. And up above is where you have that tree canopy. Your neighbor has the tree canopy, and you're in the middle of town. So you may have mitigated your property, that ember spread, and think about 2 miles outside of the city limits. You still have heavily forested areas. So that ember spread can drive straight in. Over your house in town, you have a nice canopy of trees to keep your backyard shady. So you've just created your own firestorm.
Well, lots of information, lots of things to think about. I want to thank the panel for their preparation tonight and being here and being willing to answer questions. So thank you guys so much. I want to thank Taos County for putting on this series, for all the sponsors, and certainly for the audience that's engaged and interested to see what you can do to help minimize not only the fire risk to your home, but to our community. And so I would encourage, as we get ready to leave, I think there's some snacks, there's some water. These folks will be here for a few more minutes if you have any direct questions for them. But once again, thank you, and have a wonderful evening.
Yeah, and I want to thank my colleagues too, especially somebody that speaks my language. Not very many people speak my language.